Blue and red strobes pulsed across the rain-slick highway like a heartbeat gone wrong. Deputy Cole Danner shoved Owen Morrison hard enough to wring the metal hood of the patrol SUV. Rain hit both men in slanted sheets, bouncing off windshield glass, running down the sheriff's badge on Danner's chest in bright electric streaks. "Hands where I can see them," Danner barked, though Owen's palms were already flat, fingers spread, shoulder-width apart, exactly where they had been for the last 30 seconds. Owen kept his breath even. In through the nose, out slow. Old training, old survival. A K-9 unit idled 10 yards back, rear hatch open, engine throbbing. Titan, a big sable German shepherd with dark eyes and patrol harness, whined low in his throat and shifted weight from one paw to the other, not agitated, not focused, uncertain. Danner glanced over his shoulder. Titan. Zoic. It should have triggered a sharp alert sequence. Instead, the dog stepped toward Owen's truck, paused, sniffed rain and asphalt, then looked back at his handler, ears pinning in confusion. Danner's jaw tightened. Owen felt the change before he saw it. Tiny movements. Improvised. "Step away from the vehicle," Danner ordered. "I already did." "Further." Owen moved. The rain soaked the back of his shirt and found every old scar beneath it. Shrapnel lines along his ribs lit up in the cold. A ghost ache he'd carried home from Afghanistan and never quite put down. The only thing he still wore from his marriage was a plain gold ring on a chain under his shirt, warm against his chest in summer, cold tonight as a coin. Danner pulled open Owen's driver's side door, leaned in, and made a show of searching. Glove compartment, console, underseat sweep. He came up with a pistol wrapped in a stained shop rag, then peeled the rag back just enough for the blood to catch the lights. "Jesus," one of the other deputies muttered. Deputies. Danner held the weapon up like a trophy. "Looks like we found your problem, Morrison." Owen stared at him. "That was not in my truck." "Sure it wasn't." Danner's smile never touched his eyes. "Turn around." Titan gave another soft, uneasy whine. By dawn, Harbor Point already had its story. Local developer's son survives attack. Volatile, veteran arrested with bloody weapon. They used Owen's old service photo, the one with the hard jaw and desert squint, as if the man in that picture was all that remained. They ran grainy footage of him being put in a cruiser and looped it under commentary about warning signs, unresolved combat trauma, and community safety. Harbor Point liked clean narratives. It was a wealthy coastal county built on polished concrete and donor plaques, where names mattered more than facts. Voss was on the hospital wing, the arts center, and two of the tallest condo towers facing the marina. Halberd was carved into every clinic and biotech grant that bought local goodwill. Keene was on the sheriff's annex itself, bronze letters over glass doors the size of hangars. Their sons moved through dock bars and private roads like consequence was a rumor. Preston Voss, smiling real estate heir with perfect teeth and a permanent tan from boats he never captained himself. Dr. Eli Halberd, Jr., surgical resident, legacy degree, reputation burnished by his father's money. Trent Keene, sheriff's son, part-time deputy by paperwork, full-time problem by habit. Owen had seen them that weekend at the marina, loud and drunk and untouchable. He had told them to back off a teenage deck crew they were taunting near Fuel Dock C, voice low and calm, the same way he de-escalated armed men in places no one in Harbor Point could point to on a map. Trent had laughed. Preston had stepped in close enough for Owen to smell whiskey and expensive cologne. "You don't tell us anything in this county," Preston had said. Now Preston was in a private room with stitches and security. Owen was in county lockup under fluorescent lights that hummed without mercy. He sat on a bolted steel bench and watched water drip from his cuffs onto the concrete. A rookie deputy read him his rights from a laminated card with shaking hands. Danner stood by the door, dry now, uniform changed, expression settled into official concern. "Attempted murder," Danner said, almost conversationally. "Assault with a deadly weapon. We can add intent once forensics clears." Owen met his gaze. "You planted that gun?" Danner tilted his head. "You're confused. It happens." Titan's bark echoed faintly down the hallway. One sharp sound cut off fast. That night, Owen lay on a thin mattress and listened to men snore, curse, cry, and pace. He had survived firefights, drowning drills, and months where sleep came in 20-minute pieces between alarms, but this kind of helplessness had a different shape. He could do nothing from a cell while people with money and badges wrote his life in permanent ink. He closed his eyes and saw rain on asphalt. Danner's gloved hand disappearing under the truck seat, Titan looking away. At arraignment 2 days later, the courtroom smelled of wet wool and old paper. Every bench was full. Local press lined the sidewall with phones and lenses angled like rifles. Owen stood in County Orange beside his public defender, Mara Lynn, who looked barely 30 and exhausted already. Judge Hensley peered down over half-moon glasses. "State." Assistant District Attorney Powell rose with clipped confidence. "Your Honor, the defendant was apprehended in possession of a bloodied firearm linked to the attempted murder of Preston Voss. We have physical evidence, K-9 tracking confirmation, and witness corroboration placing the defendant fleeing the docks at speed shortly after shots were fired." Murmurs rippled through the room. Powell called Deputy Danner first. Danner took the stand in pressed uniform, voice measured and patient. "My K-9, Titan, tracked blood scent from the victim's scene to the defendant's detached garage. During lawful search, we recovered shell casings matching the caliber used in the attack and a tactical knife with trace blood." Mara rose. "Objection to characterization before lab confirmation." "Noted," Judge Hensley said. "Proceed." Danner didn't even glance at Owen as he continued. "The dog gave a clear positive alert at multiple points." Owen's hands curled around the defense table edge until his knuckles blanched. Titan had not given a clean alert. Titan had hesitated. Then came the witness. A marina maintenance contractor named Earl Bishop, eyes red-rimmed, shoulders folded inward like he was trying to make himself smaller. "Did you see the defendant's vehicle?" Powell asked. Earl swallowed. "Yeah. I saw his truck leaving near Pier 9. Fast. Can you identify him in court?" Earl pointed without looking up. "That's him." Mara cross-examined cleanly, but got little traction. Lighting was poor, distance uncertain, rain heavy. Earl admitted all of it. Still, he didn't retract. Then Mara called Owen's alibi. Veterans Counseling Group, Community Center, 8 to 10 p.m., night of the attack. Powell smiled as if waiting for it. "The center cameras were inaccessible due to remote server failure," he said. "County IT confirms data corruption beginning 7:42 p.m. No recoverable footage." Mara frowned. "We have 2 participants prepared to confirm Mr. Morrison was present." Both men had submitted written statements the day before. This morning they had changed them. The first now couldn't be sure of the date. The second remembered seeing Owen recently, but not where. Powell spread his hands. "Memories are imperfect." Mara lowered her voice as she sat. "This is bad." Owen stared straight ahead. "It's staged." "I know. I can't prove staged yet." Judge Hensley set bond at an amount so high it might as well have been a wall. Owen was remanded. Outside the courthouse, microphones bloomed around Powell and Danner. Owen caught only fragments as deputies moved him to transport. Serious danger. Trained in lethal force. Community can breathe easier. By evening, every local station had updated graphics. Former Navy SEAL. Anger issues. Violent incident. Same words, different logos. In a cramped attorney room the next morning, Mara slid a file across the steel table. You need to hear this from me first. Owen opened it. VA behavioral notes. Sleep disturbance, hypervigilance, intermittent anger management sessions after transition to civilian life. Nothing criminal. Nothing extraordinary for men who had done what he had done. But stripped of context, each line looked like warning tape. They subpoenaed this? He asked. Limited release through the court. They're framing you as unstable, escalating, obsessed with control. Mara tapped the page. To a jury, uniform plus K9 plus blood evidence is heavy. Your background can cut both ways. What's the plea offer? Reduced to aggravated assault. 12 years, eligible in 8. He gave a short, humorless laugh. For something I didn't do. If you go to trial and lose, you could die in prison. Silence sat between them. Mara softened her tone. I don't think you're guilty. I need you to understand probability. Not justice. Probability. Owen leaned back, chain catching light at his collar. He touched the ring through fabric like a reflex. I buried men who didn't get to choose probability. I'm not confessing to make this easier for people lying under oath. Mara watched him for a long moment, then nodded once. Then we fight. But if we fight, we do it clean. No confrontations. No hero moves. You document everything and let me file it. Understood. Do you have anyone outside who can help gather timeline details? Receipts? Calls? Anything that survives tampering? Owen thought of his small rental over a bait shop near the old marina, of unpaid invoices for boat repair consultations, of a life measured in routines that now looked like evidence gaps. Most of his old team was scattered, 2 dead, 1 missing somewhere. Private security couldn't disclose. I'll make a list, he said. Back in holding, an older inmate with tattooed knuckles and cataract-clouded eyes studied him from the opposite bunk. You that vet on TV? Owen didn't answer. Don't matter if you did it, the man said. Matters who they say you are. That was the stake, Owen realized, sharper than the charges themselves. Not just freedom, identity. Once a county branded you violent and unstable, every fact bent to fit. Employers stopped calling back. Landlords reconsidered. Bank accounts got flagged for review. Friends drifted into silence to avoid collateral damage. Truth became an expensive hobby. By week's end, it had started already, and every piece reached him through other hands. Across 2 legal visits, Mara brought a stapled packet of notices, voicemail transcripts, and printed text screenshots pulled from forwarded records and jail call notes. His checking account at Harbor Point Credit Union was suddenly frozen, pending fraud verification. A construction manager who'd offered Owen steady equipment maintenance work left a voicemail at 2:14 a.m. Mara read the transcript aloud from the printout. Don't call me again, man. I got kids. The owner of the bait shop texted apology after apology, and Mara slid those pages across the table too, but asked if Owen could move out for everyone's comfort. Mara brought printouts of comment threads and retracted one by one as if handling contaminated evidence. Don't read these, she said. He read them anyway. Ticking time bomb. Should have stayed overseas. Those guys snap eventually. At night, he lay awake in the noise and cataloged facts the way he once mapped targets. Timeline, sight lines, probable vectors, motive. He wrote names on legal pads until the paper thinned under his pen. Preston, Eli, Trent, Danner, Earl Bishop, IT supervisor, evidence tech. Who gained what if Owen disappeared into a plea? On Sunday, a chaplain made rounds. He paused at Owen's door. "You want prayer?" Owen shook his head. "What do you want?" Owen considered the question. "A clean chain of custody." The chaplain blinked, then laughed once, unexpectedly kind. "That's a first." When Mara came Monday, he handed her 3 pages. "Everything I remember from that night, minute by minute, group roster from counseling, parking lot layout, which doors were propped for the rain, who smoked outside at break, which cameras faced which corridors before they were wiped." Mara scanned it, eyebrows rising. "You did this from memory?" "I did a lot from memory." She tucked the pages into her file. "Okay, this helps. We subpoena attendance logs, phone pings, building access records, utility data, whatever survived. We challenge K9 reliability and request training logs." At that, for the first time in days, something like focus settled into Owen's chest. Not hope, not yet, but direction. He looked through reinforced glass toward the corridor where deputies passed in shifting shadows. Somewhere in the building, a dog barked twice, then went quiet. "They picked me because I was convenient," he said. "Veteran, alone, easy headline." Mara held his gaze. "Then we make convenience expensive." When she left, Owen sat at the table and folded the plea paperwork into a tight rectangle, edges aligned with military precision. He placed it in the trash slot and watched it disappear. Outside, Harbor Point kept building itself in polished steel and donor names, pretending power was the same thing as order. Inside a county cell, Owen Morrison made a different decision. If they wanted him buried under their version of the story, they were going to have to do it in daylight, with every lie dragged into view. The trash slot clanged shut, and the sound sat in the cell like a promise. An hour later, a deputy stopped at Owen's bars and jerked his chin down the corridor. "Morrison, attorney room." Mara was already standing when he entered, legal pads spread, 2 fresh cups of burnt courthouse coffee between stacks of motions. She looked less tired than yesterday, which meant she'd either slept or decided adrenaline counted. "Good news first," she said. "I found your counseling group facilitator, Rosa Padilla. She keeps old-school paper backups because she doesn't trust county servers. Sign-in sheets, handwritten notes, weather closure logs. Your name is on all of it for the night of the attack." Owen sat. "That should have ended this." "In a sane place, yes." She slid another paper over. "Bad news. The state moved to classify those logs as non-contemporaneous administrative copies. They're saying she transcribed from memory after the outage." "That's a lie." "I know." She tapped the top page of her stack. "So I filed an emergency motion, bail reconsideration based on evidentiary contamination and prejudicial media conduct. It's thin, but Judge Hensley agreed to hear it this afternoon." Owen studied her. "Why?" "Because someone on the bench is starting to smell smoke. Maybe from your timeline memo, maybe from Danner overreaching. Doesn't matter. We take the opening." By 3:40 p.m., Owen was back in court in shackles while Powell argued he was a flight risk with combat training and documented volatility. Danner sat one row behind the prosecution table, expression carved from stone. When Mara played jail call transcripts and showed county records proving Owen had reported harassment before his arrest, Hensley frowned long enough for silence to spread. "Conditions will be strict," the judge said finally. "GPS monitor, curfew, No contact with alleged victim or witnesses except through counsel. Any violation and bond is revoked. The number was still high, but no longer impossible. A Veterans Legal Defense Fund wired support within an hour. By sunset, Owen stepped through the side exit with an ankle monitor under his jeans, and rain starting again, finer now, coastal mist instead of a downpour. Freedom felt procedural. Mara walked him to her car. "You are being watched," she said without preamble. "Assume phones are dirty. Assume every traffic stop is bait. I want a duplicate copy of every video you record sent to me and to a secure cloud the moment you can." "I can do that." She handed him a cheap prepaid phone in a zip bag. "Use this for one call only. Numbers programmed. Don't save it anywhere else." He looked at her. "Former SEAL Intel," Mara said. "Name's Tessa Vale. She consults for the State Public Integrity Bureau now. Off the books, she can point us toward what to subpoena before it disappears." "Why would she help?" Mara gave him a hard look. "Because she owes 3 funerals to this county and hates clean corruption. Get home. Keep your head down tonight." Home turned out to be a storage loft above a marine supply warehouse on the county line, offered by an old machinist who had served with Owen's father decades ago. The bait shop owner had texted twice more, apologizing and asking if Owen had moved out yet because 2 deputies had dropped by to ask safety questions. Owen set his duffel on a cot, then opened a notebook and started building his timeline in layers. Known facts, disputed claims, pressure points, calls, receipts, fuel purchases, group check-in, marina access logs. He cross-referenced everything against the prosecution's narrative until midnight, and then, with the burner in his hand, made the one call. Tessa Vale. Her voice was flat, efficient, no greeting. "Owen Morrison. Mara Lynn gave me this number." A pause. Keyboard clicks. "Retired Chief. Team 7 attachment. Helmand and Coast rotations. You're hard to frame cleanly, so they got theatrical. You looked already." "I look before I answer unknown numbers." More clicking. "Talk." Owen gave her the condensed version. Danner's roadside search. Titan's hesitation. Wiped cameras. Witness reversals. K9 track claims. "Send nothing digital yet," Tessa said. "Meet in person tomorrow. Public place. No county cameras if possible." "Where?" "State Pier. North Fuel Dock. 0600. Wear a hat. Don't be early." The line went dead. At 5:58 the next morning, he stood near a rusted bollard on the State Pier, gulls screaming overhead. Tessa arrived in dock worker coveralls with a thermos and no makeup, hair braided tight, eyes constantly moving. She didn't shake his hand. "Walk." They moved along stacked crab pots and wet rope coils while she asked quick, specific questions that sounded like field debriefs more than legal prep. "Danner's left or right hand when he signaled the dog?" "Right." "Signal?" 2-finger tap on his thigh, then a leash pop. "Distance from Titan?" "About 4 feet." "Any witnesses close enough to see?" "Rookie deputy in the rain. Might have missed it." She nodded. K9 falsification cases turn on pattern. 1 incident is handler discretion. 3 is practice. She stopped at the end of the pier and faced him. "Do not confront Danner. Make him come to you on camera." He almost smiled. "That's probably happening anyway." It happened 48 hours later on Harbor Point Boulevard. Owen was driving a borrowed pickup back from the machine shop with his red steel toolbox strapped in the bed when Danner's lights flared behind him. Titan was in the K9 cruiser, rigid and silent. Danner approached with a polite smile that never warmed. "Morning, Mr. Morrison. Mind stepping out?" "What's the stop?" "Failure to signal lane change." Owen knew he had signaled. He stepped out anyway, already tapping record on the old action camera clipped inside his jacket seam, lens peeking through a torn stitch near his sternum. Danner circled the truck. "You carrying anything I should know about?" "Tools." "Mind if Titan does a free air sniff?" Owen kept his voice level. "Do what you're going to do, Deputy." Titan trotted the perimeter, nose working. At the tailgate, he slowed, looked up at Danner, and waited. Danner gave the same subtle cue Owen had described to Tessa. 2 fingers against his thigh, quick leash check. Titan pawed once at the toolbox latch, hesitant. "There's your alert," Danner said loudly for his body mic. "Probable cause established." He popped the toolbox. Wrenches, sockets, grease-stained manuals, zip ties, a torque wrench. No narcotics, no contraband. Danner dug anyway, muttering, then slammed it shut harder than necessary. "Lucky day," he said. Owen held his gaze. "For who?" Danner stepped close enough that Owen could smell mint gum over coffee. "You think court is your battlefield? It isn't. It's our house." He leaned back, voice rising again for the recording. "You're free to go. Drive safe." When Owen pulled away, his pulse was steady and his hands were not shaking. He drove 3 miles before stopping, duplicating the video to an encrypted cloud Tessa had set up, then to Mara's secure link. 2 hours later, Tessa texted from an unlisted number. "Clear signal capture. Keep collecting. You just bought yourself leverage. Leverage didn't stop the squeeze." By Friday, his utility autopay failed after another fraud hold. The machine shop owner got 2 anonymous calls alleging Owen had threatened a witness. A marina parts supplier canceled an order tied to Owen's old vendor account with no explanation. Everywhere he turned, administrative doors closed quietly, deniability built in. The first person who tried to open one got bloodied for it. His name was Mateo Ruiz, 19, deckhand at Harbor Point Marina. Mara's investigator found him through maintenance rosters because he had been on fuel duty the night Preston was attacked. Mateo agreed to meet in the back booth of a 24-hour diner just outside town, hands trembling around untouched fries. "I saw a black SUV before the shots," he whispered. "Not Owen's truck. Sheriff plate, but covered in mud." "Did you tell cops?" Mara asked. Mateo nodded, eyes fixed on the table. "Deputy wrote nothing down. Next day, my manager says, 'Keep my mouth shut if I want hours.' He agreed to give a sworn statement." Monday. Sunday night, someone jumped him behind a liquor store 2 blocks from his apartment. 2 men in hoodies, no cameras on the alley, broken orbital socket, 3 cracked ribs. Hospital report listed attempted robbery. His wallet and phone were both still in his pocket. Mara called Owen from the ER corridor, voice tight with anger. "They sent a message." "Is he alive?" "Yes. Terrified. Won't sign anything now?" Owen stood in the dim loft looking over the black water beyond the warehouse. "They're accelerating." "So are we," Mara said. "I filed for witness protection assistance through the state. But county has to coordinate first, and county's compromised." A beat. "Yes." The next afternoon, Owen drove to the old marina to pull archived work invoices from a lockbox before another account vanished. Wind shoved whitecaps into the pilings. At the far end of the yard, a sheriff training trailer sat beside Warehouse 12, chain-link kennel modules stacked for a narcotics demonstration scheduled with local media. He heard the explosion before he saw flame, a muffled thud from inside the warehouse. Then Orange rolling out a side door as smoke punched upward in a column. People shouted. Someone yelled for extinguishers that wouldn't touch a fuel fire. A deputy sprinted toward the kennel trailer, then recoiled as a support beam inside Warehouse. 12 cracked and showered sparks across the lot. One of the kennel modules had toppled against the trailer wheel. Inside, Titan barked in sharp, panicked bursts. "Leave it!" Danner shouted from near the hose line. "Perimeter! Everybody back!" Titan slammed against the kennel gate, paw caught where twisted steel had folded inward. Flames licked under the trailer chassis. Owen moved before thought caught up, grabbing a canvas tarp from a forklift rack and soaking it in a busted rinse barrel. He wrapped it over his head and shoulders and ran low through smoke. "Morrison!" Danner roared. "Stand down!" The kennel latch was jammed. Owen wedged a tire iron through, leveraged hard until metal shrieked open, then dropped to his knees and pulled Titan's trapped paw free. The dog yelped once, then surged against him. Owen locked one arm around the shepherd's chest and backed out as a propane canister popped inside the warehouse and heat punched the air behind them. They hit open asphalt together. Titan tried to bolt, then turned back to Owen, pressing close, panting hard. Burn blistering had already started along the front paw pad. "Easy," Owen said, voice instinctively calm. "Easy, young'un." He tore a strip from his own shirt, poured bottled water over the paw to cool it, then wrapped it loose enough to avoid pressure. Titan held still, eyes fixed on his face. Danner stormed over, ash on his sleeves, rage bright. "What the hell is wrong with you? You just interfered with an active law enforcement operation. He was going to burn. He is a police animal, not your pet." Titan's ears flattened at Danner's tone. When Danner reached for the leash, the dog hesitated and shifted behind Owen's leg before correcting. Half a dozen firefighters and marina workers had phones out, filming. Danner noticed, too. He forced a smile for the nearest camera. "Appreciate civilian assistance," he said through his teeth, then yanked Titan's lead and stalked away. That night, local feeds ran split-screen clips of the warehouse blaze and veteran at center of pending attempted murder case seen at police fire scene. Commentators argued whether Owen was reckless, heroic, manipulative, unstable. Pick your adjective. But the raw video, shared and reshared before county PR could smother it, showed something else. Titan pulling toward Owen, not away. 2 days later, during what Danner called a routine courthouse, parking lot search of a contractor van, Titan broke heel for the first time anyone remembered. Instead of tracking the van seam, he veered and scratched once, twice, hard at the rear quarter panel of Danner's cruiser trunk. Whining low, then sat and stared at Owen across the lot. Danner jerked the lead, face draining. By then, Tessa had found the first fracture line. She met Owen and Mara after dark in a shuttered bait warehouse outside county jurisdiction. Rain pinged off the corrugated roof while a laptop glowed on an overturned crate between them. "I got a rookie body cam archive that was marked corrupted and purged from county retention," Tessa said. "Purges are supposed to mirror to state audit storage. Somebody forgot one back end." She clicked play. The video timestamp showed the night of Owen's arrest, angle tilted from a young deputy's chest as he stood near Danner's SUV in rain. Audio hissed with wind and radio static. On screen, Danner leaned into Owen's truck, blocked for a second by his own shoulder. When he pulled back, the bloodied pistol was in his gloved hand. Before calling it in, he crouched near Titan and fed the dog a reward tug from his cargo pocket. Only then did he give the track command. No search first, no alert first, reward first. Mara exhaled like she'd been hit. "Oh my God." Owen didn't speak. He watched Danner's movements twice more, memorizing each frame. "Chain of custody?" he asked. "Locked," Tessa said. "I mirrored the file hash to state servers before touching anything. If county claims fabrication, we have forensic provenance." Mara was already reaching for her phone. I'm filing emergency suppression, sanctions, dismissal. Do, Tessa said. But listen first. This is bigger than your case. She opened a second folder. Marina fuel logs, Coast Guard incident reports, repair invoices, sealed juvenile death records, text extractions from a warrant in an unrelated fraud case. On the screen, dates braided into a timeline. 3 weeks before Preston's alleged assault, his father's 42-foot sport cruiser had reported minor hull damage from submerged debris after a late-night run outside the no-wake zone. Same night, emergency call from a deckhand overboard near Channel Marker 7. Caller disconnected. No follow-up rescue logged. 2 days later, unofficial payment from a Voss subsidiary to a private marine salvage crew. NDA attached. 6 days later, death certificate for Luis Lou Navarro, 17, seasonal deckhand, cause listed as accidental drowning, body recovered miles south with blunt force trauma, consistent with prop strike, but no criminal referral requested. Mara stared at the screen. They buried vehicular manslaughter on the water. Likely intoxicated operation, Tessa said. Preston was seen at Dry Dock Bar before departure with Eli Halberd and Trent Keene. Sheriff's office never tested blood alcohol. No impound of the vessel. No felony filing. Owen felt the room narrow, pieces locking. That night, at Fuel Dock C, he said quietly, they were taunting deck kids. One of them said, "You didn't see anything that night either. I thought it was drunk talk." "It wasn't," Tessa said. "You confronted them publicly. Loud enough for staff to notice. Then Preston ends up attacked, and suddenly you're the unstable veteran who snapped. Perfect redirect. Sympathy for him, fear of you, and the dead kid stays an accident." Rain hammered harder overhead. Mara pressed fingers to her eyes. "If we drop this now in a motion, county can seal half of it pending investigation." "Exactly," Tessa said. "You can win dismissal and still lose the truth. They'll sacrifice Danner as a bad apple, keep the families insulated." Owen looked at the paused frame of Danner rewarding Titan beside his planted gun and made himself breathe once, slow. "What forces public jurisdiction fast?" he asked. Tessa met his gaze. "A live act in progress with state authority already on scene." Before Mara could answer, tires hissed outside. Headlights swept the warehouse slats. All three went still. A beat later, a text lit Tessa's phone from a state investigator staged 2 blocks away. "County evidence transfer convoy moving early. 1 K9 unit. Passing your location in 6. Tessa snapped the laptop shut. "We're going. Now." They reached the county evidence annex just as 2 sheriff SUVs idled at the loading bay. Under sodium lights, deputies wheeled sealed bins toward a transport van. Danner stood by the rear doors with Titan on lead, talking to an evidence tech. Owen stayed back behind a concrete barrier, exactly where Tessa pointed him. "No hero moves," she said. Titan lifted his head, nose cutting the air. His body went taut. Then he pulled once, hard, against Danner's grip. "Titan, eh? Heel." The dog slipped his collar in one clean twist and trotted straight across the lot toward Owen through shouted commands and boot steps. Danner swore. "Grab him!" No one moved fast enough. Titan stopped in front of Owen, sat, and stared up, chest heaving. Owen crouched slowly, palms open. "Rustig," he said, an old Dutch calm command he hadn't spoken in years. Titan lowered his head and pressed it against Owen's forearm. Behind them, every deputy in the lot had gone silent. Tessa's phone buzzed again. She glanced down, then turned the screen so Owen could see a scanned PDF she'd just been sent from a retired military K9 trainer in another state. Evaluation notes, handler complaints, and a transfer memo bearing a familiar signature initial NR. Documented concern. Coercive cueing by Deputy C. Danner, reward timing inconsistent with true detection behavior. Owen looked from the memo to Titan, then to Danner's face across the pavement, and felt his objective shift with cold clarity. This was no longer about reasonable doubt. This was about collapse in public, where money couldn't edit the footage. This was no longer about reasonable doubt. This was about collapse in public, where money couldn't edit the footage. Danner took one step forward, hand half raised like he might strike the dog in front of 20 witnesses. "Call him off," he snapped. Owen didn't move. "He came to me." "Titan, higher," Danner barked. Titan's ears twitched, but he stayed pressed against Owen's forearm. Tessa stepped into the open and flipped her credential wallet toward the nearest deputy. "Public Integrity Bureau. Evidence transfer is frozen pending state review. Nobody touches those bins." Danner laughed once, raw and disbelieving. "On whose order?" "Mine for 60 minutes. Judge rules if you force me to call him from this lot." The evidence tech at the van froze with his hands on a sealed tote. Then headlights cut across the bay entrance. Sheriff Keene's black Tahoe rolled in, grill lights dark but unmistakable. He got out slow, hatless, silver hair damp at the temples, and took in the tableau. His deputy, the state agent, his son's scapegoat, and a patrol dog publicly refusing command. "What is this?" Keene asked quietly. "Circus?" Tessa didn't blink. Potential evidence contamination and unauthorized movement of felony materials. Keene's smile was thin as wire. "County operation. County chain. State corruption review supersedes when civil rights violations are implicated." Keene turned to Owen as if Tessa hadn't spoken. "Mr. Morrison, you seem to keep appearing where police work happens?" Owen met his eyes. "I seem to keep appearing where your people lie." 3 deputies shifted, waiting for permission. Keene looked back at Danner. "Get your dog under control." Danner yanked an empty slip lead from his belt and lunged. Titan pivoted away and stayed at Owen's knee, hackles half raised now, not at Owen, at Danner. That did it. Keene's tone hardened. "Mr. Morrison is not K-9 certified. He is not authorized contact. Detain him for interference." Mara's voice cut across the lot before anyone could move. "Try it, and I file federal before sunrise." She strode in from the far curb, hair windblown, trial bag over one shoulder, phone already recording. "My client is on conditional release, in public, complying with all lawful orders. Your deputy's dog approached him. There are 12 cameras rolling." Keene's gaze flicked to the bystanders filming from trucks, from loading docks, from across the fence line. He recalculated in real time. "Fine," he said. "No arrests, but this transfer proceeds." Tessa held out her hand. "Manifest." The evidence tech looked to Keene. Keene gave the smallest nod. Tessa scanned pages under the sodium light, thumb slowing midway. Bin 14C is listed as marine composite debris. Channel marker 7 case reference. Why is that in an attempted homicide transfer? Keene answered before anyone else could. "Unrelated storage consolidation. Convenient." Danner stepped in. "You don't have probable cause to seize county property." Tessa looked up. "I have probable cause stacked to the rafters." For a moment, Owen thought it might break there. Badges versus badges. Somebody going for cuffs, somebody for a weapon. Instead, Keene gestured toward the bay doors. "Move," he said to his team. Tessa swore and dialed as the bins rolled. State-hold authority took time to confirm. Bureaucracy moved slower than panic. By the time she got verbal from a duty judge, the van was already pulling out, escorted by 2 cruisers. She slammed her palm against the hood of her car. They split the convoy. We track the lead and lose the tail. Which one has 14C? Mara asked. Don't know. Manifest could be swapped. Owen watched taillights vanish into mist and felt the floor drop beneath the whole case. If those hull fragments disappeared, Lou Navarro stayed an accident, Preston stayed a victim, and Owen's exoneration became a technicality instead of truth. Keene lingered by his Tahoe, voice pitched to Carey. You want daylight, Morrison. Be careful what it burns. By dawn, they had 3 legal motions in and no answer that mattered. At 8:12 a.m., Harbor Point Sheriff's Office issued a press release. K-9 unit disruption by defendant under felony indictment. It included a cropped still of Owen crouched by Titan and language about attempts to compromise active law enforcement assets. Local stations ran it under Chirons before Mara could get a rebuttal drafted. At 9:03, Powell filed emergency notice alleging Owen had violated release conditions by interfering with witnesses and police procedures. Bond review hearings set for next morning. At 10:20, Tessa got the first real hit. One convoy vehicle had logged into County Motor Pool at 2:11 and back out at 2:28 with no destination tag. Ghost Run. At 11:05, the state judge signed the preservation order. At 11:19, Harbor Point filed compliance. At 11:47, a county clerk quietly uploaded an addendum stamped 6 hours earlier. Bin 14C disposed under hazardous biohazard, protocol due saltwater contamination, and structural instability. Disposed. Mara read the PDF in silence, then set her phone down too carefully. They destroyed it before the order landed. Tessa was already moving, grabbing keys. Or pretended to. Disposal logs can be forged. They hit the county waste transfer yard at noon with state writ in hand. Supervisors stonewalled. Cameras on maintenance downtime. Scale logs missing a 2-hour block. A forklift operator finally admitted he'd moved a sealed black tote to a sheriff-marked SUV, not a disposal furnace. Who signed? Tessa demanded. He swallowed. Deputy Danner. No tote, no fragments, no blood trace, no physical anchor for Lou's death. Genuine silence settled over the 3 of them in the yard office, broken only by a fluorescent buzz and the far metallic slam of compactors. Owen felt anger come up, clean and hot, and useless. Mara pinched the bridge of her nose. We still have the body cam. Which proves planting in your case, Tessa said. Not homicide cover-up. Without 14C, Powell can argue unrelated misconduct by one deputy. They'll quarantine Danner, protect the families. And Titan? Owen asked. Tessa checked her phone. Her face changed. They've pulled him from duty. Internal memo says temporary quarantine, pending behavioral review. Where? Not listed. Owen knew what that meant. Dogs who became liabilities were reassigned fast or put down faster, paperwork neat, reasons bland, aggression, unpredictability, handler safety. At 3:30, they walked into bond review under that weight and got hit again. Powell played edited body cam clips from the annex that framed Owen as advancing on Danner while Titan defended distance. Mara objected to incompleteness. Hensley allowed provisional viewing pending full forensic sync. Then Powell produced a sworn statement from Earl Bishop recanting his uncertainty and claiming Owen had pressured him near a gas station to change testimony. Owen whispered, I never saw him. I know, Mara whispered back, but her jaw was tight. Hensley leaned over the bench. Mr. Morrison, I warned you. These contacts and incidents, they're manufactured, Owen said. Maybe, but my job is risk management. Bond was not revoked, but modified. House arrest at verified address, no independent travel, daily check-ins, zero contact with the law enforcement operations. Any violation, immediate remand. The loft became a cage with better air. That night, while Owen sat under a bare bulb replaying Danner's hand signals, frame by frame, his prepaid phone lit with an unknown county number. He answered and got static, then a voice scramble he recognized anyway. Trent Keene, smiling through every syllable. "Hey, Seal. Hear your dog friend got put in timeout. Shame. They don't keep broken animals long." The line clicked dead. Owen stood very still, thumb whitening around the phone. He did not throw it, did not punch drywall, just wrote the timestamp down and sent it to Mara and Tessa. At 1:14 a.m., Tessa texted back, "Can't trace clean. Burner relay. I'm sorry." Mara sat in her office with the lights off and the harbor glow striping her ceiling in watery bars. She should have gone home 3 hours ago. Instead, she had Owen's case file open across the floor, color tabs bleeding into each other. Evidentiary motions, witness assaults, retention failures, K-9 protocols, county ethics complaints she'd drafted and not filed yet, because filing too early got people buried. Her hands shook when she poured cold coffee from the communal pot she hated. She set the mug down before she spilled it on exhibits. She had built her career on precision and distance, facts, procedure, no heroes, no saviors. Men like Owen were exactly who she had trained herself not to lean toward, controlled until they weren't, carrying wars no courtroom could cross-examine. She had told herself that on day 1 and day 10, and every time he sat across from her and refused to fold. Now she knew the real reason she kept saying it. At 22, in her first year as a clerk, her older brother had been hit by a drunk off-duty deputy on a service road outside Harbor Point. The report called it limited visibility, no criminal intent. Witnesses changed statements. Dashcam footage corrupted. Her mother stopped speaking for 6 months. Her father drank himself into a soft apology that never used the word cover-up. Mara had taken the law because she could not live with the helplessness of that week again. And here she was, 12 years later, watching the same machine grind another man in front of her. Only this time she knew every gear by name. Her phone buzzed. Owen. She let it ring twice, steadied her voice, answered, "You okay?" A beat. Depends how you define okay. She almost laughed, almost cried. "Don't do anything impulsive tonight." "Wasn't planning to." "You sound like you're planning." Silence then. "I keep thinking about the kid. Lou. 17. They erased him before they erased me." Mara closed her eyes. "I know." She wasn't supposed to say more. Attorneys did not bleed into client calls. But the words came anyway, rough-edged and honest. "My brother was 24, she said. "Different case, same county, same disappearing evidence trick. I learned to sound calm because if I didn't, nobody listened. But I am very, very tired of watching this place decide whose death counts." The line went quiet except for his breathing. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "I'm sorry." She wiped at her face, annoyed to find it wet. "Don't be. Just stay alive long enough to make this hurt them." "I will." After they hung up, Mara sat in the dark until dawn, then opened a blank pleading and started writing an emergency petition that named names she'd been warned never to type in the same paragraph. By the time sun hit the courthouse glass, her fear was still there, hot and specific, but it was no longer steering. At 9:07 a.m., Tessa arrived at the loft in an unmarked state sedan with a look Owen didn't like. "Get your shoes," she said. "We move now." Mara filed an emergency state protective custody witness transfer under exigent threat protocol and notified the duty judge. I'm on house arrest. County compliance may still ping until the clerk updates, but you're covered if we move now. In the car, she handed him a tablet showing intercepted county radio traffic and flight logs. Harbor Point was hosting the Voss waterfront, groundbreaking at noon, live press, drones, donors, half the county elite. At 11:40, a sheriff-marked SUV was scheduled to enter the site under event security exemption, no routine inspection. Cargo tag, Municipal Archives. Escort, Deputy Danner. Secondary note on a private helipad manifest, flagged by State Aviation Liaison. Charter helicopter filed under Keene Security Holdings. Passengers coded PV and TK. Wheels up 12:15, weather permitting. They're running, Owen said. Or staging distance before indictments hit. Same effect. Tessa swiped to another screen. State finally got partial warrant authority, but it's narrow, only for materials tied to your indictment unless we catch active obstruction in real time. We need Danner moving contraband on camera. Mara called in as they drove, voice clipped with controlled panic. Judge signed my expanded petition, but clerk delayed docketing. Powell knows something's coming. He just filed notice that Owen violated movement restrictions. Tessa muttered. Of course he did. Mara continued. If county deputies spot Owen at that site before state announces intervention, Keene can order immediate remand and bury this under fugitive behavior. Owen looked out at the ocean flashing between buildings, then back at Tessa. So I stay out of sight. You stay behind me, she said. You are witness, not spear. They pulled into a service road above the construction basin where cranes stood like rib bones against the sky. Below, white tents snapped in the wind, press risers filled, ceremonial shovels lined in chrome for photo ops. At the far edge, the helipad gleamed. Owen's ankle monitor buzzed once, a warning chirp for perimeter breach. His phone lit almost instantly with a county compliance text. Location violation detected. Return to approved address immediately. Then another, this one from an unknown number with a photo attachment. Titan in a chain-link run, muzzle strapped, one front paw bandaged dirty, eyes flat with sedation. A handwritten board hung on the gate. Behavioral termination review, 1,300 hours. No message, just the image. For the first time since the highway stop, Owen felt his control shear. Tessa saw his face. What? He turned the screen toward her. Jesus. She grabbed her radio. I need confirmation on County K9 quarantine location now. Static. No immediate answer. Below them, sirens chirped once as a sheriff SUV rolled through the event gate right on schedule. Danner behind the wheel. Tessa shoved her sidearm check and badge into place. This is it. If that vehicle exits before we lock probable cause, we lose everything. Mara's voice came through speakerphone, breathless now. I'm 6 minutes out. Owen, listen to me. You cannot rush this. If you get taken down on camera, they win the narrative again. Down at the stage, Preston Voss stepped to the podium under applause, sunlight on his perfect suit. Trent Keene stood off to the side, scanning the crowd, hand near his jacket, already angling toward the helipad path. Above them, wind kicked harder, rattling scaffolds and tent frames. Owen stared from Danner's SUV to the helipad to the photo of Titan, awaiting termination review, and the morning narrowed to a single unbearable equation. Move now and risk handing Keene a lawful arrest or hold, and watch the last living witness with 4 paws disappear. Tessa touched his arm, voice low and hard. Choose with your head, not your rage. Below, Danner opened the SUV hatch and reached for a black sealed tote, the same size as bin 14C. 2 minutes earlier, Tessa had shoved her phone into Owen's hand. Judge Hensley's signed emergency carve-out, entered on the noon docket, temporarily lifting house arrest travel, and no-contact limits for state-directed material witness transport under direct investigator supervision. Mara had the same order in hard copy, stamped and time-noted. Below, Danner opened the SUV hatch and reached for a black sealed tote. The same size, Owen said. Tessa was already on her radio. State teams, move on my mark. We have visual on suspect container. Mark, crackled back. She looked at Owen. Now. They ran down the service stairs into wind and grit. Mara's sedan fishtailed into the contractor lane at the same time, door flying open before the car stopped rolling. She came out with a folder in one hand and a portable loudhailer in the other. "Deputy Danner," she shouted, voice cutting through applause from the stage. "State preservation order and emergency injunction. Step away from that vehicle." Heads turned, cameras swung. Preston Voss stalled at the podium mid-sentence, smile freezing. Danner didn't stop. He hoisted the tote, tucked it against his vest, and moved toward a temporary security tent that led to the helipad path. Mara stepped directly into his lane. "Move," Danner said low. "Serve accepted," she snapped, shoving the stamped order toward his chest and raising the loudhailer again. "This deputy is under active state review for evidence tampering. Keep filming. Do not cut your feeds." 2 local camera operators looked at each other, then at the crowd. Neither stopped rolling. Sheriff Keene appeared near the stage stairs with Trent at his shoulder. "Deputy Lynn." "Counselor Lynn," Mara corrected, eyes never leaving Danner. "And you can say that into the camera, Sheriff." Tessa reached the barricade with 2 state investigators and flash credentials. "Cole Danner, drop the container." Danner set the tote down only long enough to draw his sidearm and angle it low behind the tote, where he thought no one would catch it. Owen saw the motion and stepped clear of Mara's line. "Gun!" he shouted. Screams broke loose. Donors dropped behind chairs. A drone camera dipped and recovered overhead, live streaming the whole basin. Danner backed toward his SUV, weapon now up. "Nobody move. This is a lawful county transfer." "Not anymore," Tessa said, gun out, measured. "Put it down." Keene barked at county deputies. "Form on me. Secure the perimeter." Half of them hesitated, looking from sheriff to state badges to the dozen phones filming. From the SUV's rear compartment came a bark, muffled, frantic. Owen's chest tightened. "Titan." Danner yanked open the rear door with his free hand. Titan was inside, harnessed hard to a short lead, muzzle strap cut but hanging. The bandage on his burned paw was gray and wet. Danner pointed his weapon at Owen and shouted the command like a curse. "Titan! Fast!" For one impossible half-second, the dog held still. Then Titan exploded forward, past Owen. He hit Danner's gun arm high at the forearm, jaws locking through sleeve and skin. The pistol fired once into dirt. Danner screamed, stumbled, and went down on one knee, trying to punch the dog off with his left hand. "Don't shoot the dog," Owen yelled, already moving. He slid in low, caught Danner's wrist before a second shot could chamber, and torqued the weapon free with a brutal twist. The pistol skidded under a folding chair. State investigators swarmed. One kicked the gun farther. Another drove Danner face first into gravel and cuffed his left wrist, while Titan held the right pinned. "Titan, loss," Owen said, breath ragged but steady. The shepherd released on command and backed to Owen's leg, eyes blazing, chest pumping. Across the site, Trent grabbed Preston by the elbow and bolted for the helipad ramp. Eli Halberd, pale and sweating in a dress shirt, tried to follow them but cut across unfinished scaffold decking where safety rails were half installed for the ceremony reveal. "Stop!" Tessa shouted. Trent kept running. Preston slipped on loose plastic and slammed into a support stanchion. Eli climbed a cross brace to get around them, shoes skidding on wet steel. A gust hit. The scaffold shuddered. Eli's foot punched through a gap. He pitched sideways, fingers clawing empty air, and dropped. Owen was already moving before anyone else processed it. A coiled belay line hung from a rigging hook by the crane staging area. He grabbed the line, clipped it through a carabiner loop with muscle memory older than the county itself, and threw his weight backward. The rope snapped taut across his palms as Eli fell 3 stories and jerked to a stop hard enough to spin him upside down over rebar. Eli screamed, high an animal. "Don't let go! Don't let go!" Owen dug boots into mud, shoulders burning, and hauled line hand over hand while 2 laborers jumped in and took slack. Eli slammed against the scaffold once, then again, coughing and sobbing. "I got you," Owen said through clenched teeth. "Stop fighting the rope." Above, drones hovered like insects. Every local station had the shot. The unstable veteran, saving the Dr. Air who helped frame him. Near the helipad, Trent made it 10 more yards before a state trooper tackled him across the painted H. Preston threw his hands up, shouting about lawyers and unlawful detention, while rotor wash from a warming helicopter flattened his hair. Back by the SUV, Danner thrashed under 3 agents, blood running down his sleeve where Titan had bitten deep. "That dog is compromised," he screamed. "He attacked his handler on command from a civilian." Mara knelt by the fallen tote, cut the zip seal with a key, and peeled back plastic while a camera operator zoomed in so close the image shook. Inside, jagged white and blue fiberglass hull fragments, tagged and dated. A damp evidence bag containing a deck shoe with the name LU written in marker. Another bag with swabs and a lab sheet. Human blood trace. Juvenile male DNA profile pending. Tessa stepped beside her and held up a fresh evidence card to the nearest lens. State seizure. Case log begins now. Timestamp 12:14 p.m. Witnesses present? She looked directly into the largest camera and said, clear as a verdict, "This is material tied to the death of Luis Navarro, age 17. It was being moved in violation of preservation order." The whole ceremony went dead quiet except for wind and distant rotor thump. In 1 minute, Harbor Point lost control of the story. Danner did not go quietly. Even cuffed and bleeding, he tried to stand, tried to bull through the agents, shouting orders like his badge still worked. "Keene, tell them. This is county jurisdiction." Sheriff Keene stood rigid near the stage steps, face gone chalky. For one beat, Owen thought Keene might actually try to pull rank. Then he saw 3 federal SUVs rolling in through the south gate behind state units, dark jackets stepping out with DOJ patches bright against black. Keene's mouth closed. Danner saw them too and went feral. He twisted his cuffed hands under his legs with a flexibility born of practice, brought them to the front, and lunged for the dropped pistol's last known direction. One state investigator clipped his shoulder, missed, and went down in chairs. Owen moved first. He intercepted Danner at the waist, drove him into a plywood sponsor wall hard enough to split it, and pinned him with forearm pressure under the jaw. "Stop," Owen said low. "You're done." Danner spat blood. "You think this ends with me? It starts with you." Danner bucked, nearly throwing him. Owen shifted, trapped the injured arm without touching the bite wound, and leveraged Danner onto his face. Training, not rage. Control, not spectacle. Federal agents took over cuffs and cinched a belly chain. As they hauled him up, Danner locked eyes with Owen, something naked and hateful in them now that the public script was gone. "I made you what you are in this town." Owen didn't blink. "No. You showed them what you are." Across the site, Trent Keene fought 2 troopers and got a knee in the dirt for it, cursing his father by first name. Preston tried to negotiate on speakerphone with someone in Tallahassee until an agent took the phone and ended the call. Eli sat wrapped in a borrowed safety harness, shaking uncontrollably, while paramedics checked his pupils. He stared at Owen as if seeing him for the first time. Eli swallowed, voice cracking. You should have let me hit. Owen looked at him, rain starting again in a fine mist. Maybe. But I don't do easy deaths. Mara was still in the center of it, directing with the precision of a trial strategist and a field commander. She pointed a producer toward the open tote. Stay on that. Don't cut away. To another. Record the chain tags. Read them aloud. To Tessa. Get a second state witness on every bag before county claims contamination. Then she turned and walked straight to Sheriff Keene, who was trying to retreat toward the VIP exit. Sheriff, are you ordering county deputies to interfere with state seizure? She asked, phone up, recording. He gave her a look full of old power and new panic. Counselor, this isn't your lane. It is now. Answer. He stepped closer, voice dropping. You have no idea who you just embarrassed. Mara didn't move. I know exactly who. Say it louder if you want the mics to catch it. Keene looked over her shoulder at the federal jackets, at donors pretending not to know him, at his son on his knees in front of a helicopter he could no longer reach. He said nothing. That silence cost him more than any quote. When federal agents read Danner his rights, he laughed once, almost admiring in its bitterness. You'll never make conspiracy stick. Tessa stood 6 feet away, rain on her lashes, and replied, We already have your body cam plant, your transfer logs, your disposal forgery, your witness intimidation pattern, and your dog disobeying a felony command on a live broadcast. Keep talking. Danner stopped laughing. Titan leaned against Owen's leg and trembled now that the adrenaline had burned off. Blood on his muzzle, bandage slipping. Owen crouched and checked the burned paw, then the jaw for fractures. You did good, he murmured. Good so, Jongen. For the first time all day, Titan's breathing slowed. By early afternoon, the site was a grid of numbered markers, seized electronics, and tape boundaries. The groundbreaking banner flapped half-torn above a mud lot full of evidence tents. No shovels, no ribbon, no speech, just exposure. By dusk, Owen sat on the bumper of a state vehicle outside Harbor Point Medical Annex, while a veterinary tech irrigated Titan's paw and wrapped Danner's bite in a clean silver dressing. Surface burn reopen, she said. No deep tendon damage. He'll limp a few days. Titan rested his head against Owen's thigh and shut his eyes as if permission had finally arrived. Tessa came out of the annex doors with a stack of intake forms and the spent look of someone who had sprinted for 12 straight hours. She handed Owen a bottle of water. Federal took primacy, she said. Civil rights and obstruction. State keeps homicide, cover-up, and tampering. Danner? In a holding cell an hour inland where Keene can't reach him, he asked for counsel, then asked if the dog was alive. Owen looked down at Titan. Why? Tessa shrugged. Control freaks hate unknowns. Mara walked up from the parking lot, heels muddy, blazer over one shoulder, hair escaping every pin. She looked at Owen, then at Titan, and some of the steel left her posture. You okay? She asked. He nodded once. You? I'll answer after I stop shaking. She sat beside him on the bumper without asking and let herself breathe. For a minute, none of them spoke. Sirens came and went in the distance, softer now. On a waiting room TV visible through the glass doors, a replay looped of the moment Titan bypassed Owen and took Danner down. Caption, K9 turns during waterfront raid. Underneath, A second line had begun to appear on some feeds, still clumsy, but closer to truth. Deckhand death case reopened. Owen watched Eli's fall and catch replay once, then looked away. "I didn't do it for him," he said quietly. Mara followed his gaze. "I know. I did it because if I let him die, they'd bury Lou again under that." Mara's voice was tired and certain. "You kept the case clean. That matters." A county deputy approached the lot edge, saw Tessa's stare, and thought better of crossing. Tessa checked her phone. Judge Rule signed emergency protective order for Titan pending K-9 board review. County can't euthanize, transfer, or isolate him without state vet witness. Owen let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thank you," he said. Tessa nodded, already turning to the next fire. "Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow is motions, affidavits, and 12 people pretending they never met Danner." After she left, Mara stayed on the bumper beside Owen until full dark settled. The crisis hum was ebbing, leaving behind the delayed tremor in his hands. He flexed his fingers once. "Back there, when he drew—" "You stayed in control," she said. He gave a rough half-smile. "You keep saying that like it's fragile." "It is." She looked at him then, direct. "And you kept it anyway." "Hensley's clerk entered the minute order an hour ago. Your actions were within supervised, material witness scope, and emergency defense of life. No bond violation." A long silence. Rain began again, just a whisper on asphalt. "Come by my office tomorrow after testimony prep," she said. "Not as your lawyer, as... just come." He looked at her, reading what she wasn't padding with legal language. "Okay," he said. Mara's office smelled like old books, printer toner, and the jasmine tea she never finished. It was past 9 when Owen arrived the next night. No interns, no phones ringing, courthouse dark across the street. She had changed out of court clothes into jeans and a gray sweater, which somehow made her seem both younger and more guarded. "I pulled privilege waivers," she said as he stepped in. "Your case transferred to special counsel, finalized this afternoon. I'm no longer attorney of record." He nodded. "So this conversation is legal?" "Very." He closed the door softly behind him. For a moment they just stood there, both suddenly uncertain in a room where they had been certain about everything else. Mara broke first with a humorless laugh. "I can cross-examine a corrupt deputy in front of 4 cameras. But this is what makes me nervous." Owen leaned against the filing cabinet. "Then start with True." She drew a breath. "True is I kept you at arm's length because I thought if I cared, I'd make mistakes. True is I already made mistakes because I cared anyway." He waited. "True is when you didn't take the plea, I was angry at you for maybe throwing your life away. Then I realized I was angry because I was afraid you'd prove me wrong about this county and about people. I had built my whole career on controlled losses." Her eyes shone, but her voice stayed steady. "You refused controlled loss." He looked down once at the wedding ring chain against his shirt, then back up. "My wife died 6 years ago. Car wreck. Drunk tourist crossed median. I learned to live inside routines because routines don't leave. I told myself that was discipline. Mostly it was fear dressed up clean." Mara's expression softened. "I'm not asking you to erase her." "I know." He touched the chain. "I'm telling you, I haven't let anyone stand close enough to hear me say that out loud." She crossed the room slowly and stopped an arm's length away. "Then hear this out loud from me." He held her gaze. "I love you," she said, plain and unadorned, like testimony under oath. "Not because you're strong or controlled or useful in court, Because when everything in you wanted to burn this place down, you chose the harder thing, truth with consequences. Because you carry grief without making it a weapon. Because even yesterday, with every reason to hate, you saved a man who helped hurt you. Her mouth trembled once. And because when you walk into a room, I feel less alone in it. Owen swallowed once. The old reflex to step back was there. He felt it and let it pass. I don't know how to do easy, he said. I don't trust easy. A faint laugh escaped him. He reached up, unclipped the chain, and opened his hand. The gold ring lay in his palm, worn thin on one edge. I wore this to remember, he said. Some days I wore it to avoid choosing anything new. I can keep remembering without hiding in it. Mara nodded, eyes wet now. You can. He set the ring gently on her desk, not discarded, just placed. Then he stepped closer and cupped her face with both hands like he was handling something breakable and brave at once. I love you too, he said. I think I have for a while. I was just slower to call it by name. She exhaled a sound that was almost a sob and almost a laugh and leaned into him. When they kissed, it wasn't rushed or cinematic. It was the quiet shock of finally standing where both of them had been walking for months. Later, they sat on the floor against her couch, backs to the cushions, legs stretched out, sharing cold takeout noodles from the box because neither had eaten. What does this look like? She asked. Honest schedules, he said. No heroic disappearing acts. You tell me when I'm isolating. I tell you when I'm spiraling. Therapy, she asked. Yes? Together sometimes. He nodded. If you want. I do. She set the noodle box aside and leaned her head on his shoulder. When this settles, I want to help build that Marina program with you. Veterans and working dogs. Trauma both directions. He turned to her. You'd leave litigation? Not leave, expand. I'm very good at making bureaucracies regret underestimating me. He smiled for real this time. I've noticed. They stayed like that until midnight, city lights fading in the harbor glass. No strategy left to draft, no motions left to file for one blessed hour. The courtroom was packed for sentencing, but the sound was different now, less gossip, more gravity. Deputy Cole Danner stood in orange behind counsel table, right forearm scarred and stiff where Titan had bitten through muscle. He kept his chin high through the clerk's recitation. Evidence tampering, perjury, civil rights violations, obstruction, conspiracy. Judge Rule read each count like a bell. Guilty. When invited to speak, Danner gripped the podium. I did what I had to do to keep order in a county overrun by entitled men and weak prosecutors. I am not the villain they need for the show. Rule's expression did not change. You did not keep order, Deputy. You manufactured it by violating law. Sentence? 22 years, no parole eligibility before 15. Remanded. Danner looked over his shoulder once, toward Owen in the gallery. Not triumph now, not rage, just the stunned vacancy of a man discovering that consequences were real. 2 weeks later, in a separate hearing, Preston Voss, Eli Halbert Jr., and Trent Keene entered pleas. Vehicular manslaughter, obstruction, witness intimidation. Preston's voice shook only when Lou Navarro's mother stood for victim impact and read her son's last text about wanting extra shifts to help with rent. Eli cried openly. Trent stared at the floor until cuffs clicked. In the same plea cycle, county IT contractor Blaine Mercer, an outside systems vendor tied to Keene campaign donors, pled guilty to 1 count of unlawful computer access and 2 counts of witness tampering conspiracy, admitting under oath that he executed the 7:42 p.m. remote wipe of the community center camera server and coordinated pressure payments that pushed 2 alibi witnesses into recanting before court. Sheriff Keene resigned before federal indictment was unsealed. He walked out of the annex under his own name carved in bronze and did not look up at it. At County Hall, a formal apology sounded like language written by committee until the county administrator looked directly at Owen and said, "We failed you." That part at least rang true. Then came the settlement conference in a polished room with sea views and bottled water labels turned outward for cameras. "Mr. Morrison," the county attorney said, sliding a figure across the table that could have bought silence for generations. "We believe this reflects substantial acknowledgement." Owen didn't touch the paper. "I want the old Marina Clinic building deeded at $1 lease for 30 years. Independent board, veteran trauma services, working dog rehabilitation, and handler ethics training. Public scholarship in Luis Navarro's name for deck apprentices." The attorney blinked. "That's not standard." "Neither is framing citizens with police dogs." Mara, seated beside him now as private counsel and partner in everything that mattered, added, "You can wire money and call it closure, or you can fund change and call it accountability. Choose." They chose. On a clear morning a month later, Owen stood outside the old clinic with fresh paint drying and a new sign being bolted above the door. Navarro Harbor, Trauma and Working Dog Center. Tessa arrived in field boots carrying a cardboard archive box. "Final records release," she said. "Military K-9 transfer files finally cleared." Inside was the memo she had flashed at the annex lot, now complete. Trainer, Chief Nathan Rourke, Owen's teammate, killed on his third rotation. Owen sat on the clinic steps and read Rourke's handwriting, blocky and unmistakable. At the bottom, under performance notes and warnings about coercive handling, one line stood alone. "If this dog ever stops obeying the badge, trust him. He knows the difference between command and character." Owen read it twice, thumb resting on the ink as if touch could bridge years. "You knew?" Mara asked softly beside him. "He and Nate trained together before adoption transfer," Owen said. "I never knew Titan was that dog." Titan, now in a blue service partner vest instead of patrol harness, rested his chin on Owen's boot and sighed. That night, rain returned to Harbor Point, slicking roads and painting the windows in moving silver. No sirens, no strobes. In Owen's bedroom above the clinic, the chain with the ring hung on a nail by the window. Not hidden, not worn. Mara slept on her side of the bed, one hand flung toward him in unconscious claim. At the foot of the bed, Titan lifted his head once at a distant car door, listened, then settled again. Owen lay on his back, breathing slow, watching rain track down glass. For the first time in years, sleep came before dawn, and it stayed.